Hello everyone, welcome to 3ddesignacademy.com. In this lesson, we'll continue with part 50 of the Lamborghini Aventador project. So in the previous lesson, we spent some time working on this detail over here. The only issue is that right now with the current setup, I think this was a little bit too flat. So I tried to find a reference, and luckily I was find just the thing that I needed to build this area. As you can see over here, this surface is actually pointing down, so it creates a little bit of triangle shape. Well, it's not a triangle, but it's a rectangular shape with a little bit of point in the end. So I think that's going to help us build a little bit of thickness towards for this surface. Okay, so let's go ahead and actually, before I continue, I'm actually going to make this a little bit, quite a bit thicker. Because even as you can see over here, it's got a substantial amount of width, and I think what I have made over here is a little bit too thin. So I'm going to start with that first. So I'm just going to delete this one over here, and I'm going to delete this surface as well. And I'm just going to create a curve. I'm just going to create one along this edge like this. And I'm going to just use the stretch tool to point it down a little bit. And let's go ahead and do a rail. So it's just going to be one and one. I'm going to be using the edge like this. And I'm just going to see if this is appropriate thickness. I think it's a little bit too thick. So let's go ahead and let's see, where's the extend? I'm going to just extend it back until the thickness is similar to the image. So I think this is probably close. I think the angle probably could be adjusted a little bit. So I'm going to grab the stretch tool like this, shade it back up, and I'm just going to lower it like that. I think it's pretty close, maybe a little bit more. Yeah, I think that looks quite, I think that looks good. Well, maybe actually I'm going to move it up a little bit. I think that's pretty good. Okay, so I think the width is good. Yeah, I think the width is definitely an improvement from before. And now let's go ahead and create some thickness over here. Oh, actually, before I do that, I do need to close this area off. So I am going to grab this curve over here, snap it here. The angle should be the same, and I'm just going to create a rail like this. And I'm just going to, well, maybe say parallel, and that is going to cover this surface over here. Now let's go ahead and build the thickness for the this part here. Well, in this case, it's carbon fiber. So let's go ahead and grab this curve. Just going to snap it over here. Now that does give a little bit better angle for this thickness over here. So let's go all the way around the model. So I'm just going to grab a curve like this, and this one is also going to be a rail. Actually, this one's natural. I'm going to do natural for this one as well. Next position failed, so I'm going to turn explicit control off. And lastly, I'm going to do the same thing for here. Oh, that's weird. I don't know why that's not matching, but that's okay. I just need to update it. So I'm just going to untrim this piece over here like this, and I'm just going to make sure that it is all lined up. So I'm going to say position align. I'm going to snap it over here. I wonder if this is off over here, but it's not. So that's, I wonder what happened there, but well, we can always fix it. So that's not a huge issue. Okay, so I'm going to turn blending on, extra series of 5, blend factor of 0. Now we are chopping it off here, so I don't think it really needs to be that precise, but still, let's try to get it as close as possible. Oh, okay, so I think that might have been why. So I did adjust the height of this, but I think the projection vector might have been not from the top view, but maybe from like a perspective view. So maybe that's why it was a little bit off. Okay, so I'm just going to project it from the top view like this, and I'm going to just trim that off. And now let's go ahead and create a curve over here to close this off. So I'm just going to do something like that. And I'm going to do a rail over here like this. And that, let me just check to make sure that the thickness is even all the way around. Okay, so I think it's a little bit thinner over here. I think this thickness is pretty similar. This one could probably be a little bit thicker. So I'm going to just shift the CV or shift the curve a little bit. Okay, so I think that's a little bit closer. Maybe just a hair. A little bit more. Okay. So I think that looks good, and I'm going to make sure that this is also a little bit thicker. So I'm going to just snap a curve over here like this, and I think that looks much better. Okay, so if that is the case, I think the top view that we were looking at before, I think that actually matches quite well. Actually, see if I still have one up. No, I don't. Let me just grab it. So if you look at this image over here, just you'll see that it actually appears quite thick. I think this is how it was supposed to be. So I think it was just my mistake of thinking that it wasn't. But now we got a little more substance here. I think that looks much better. Okay, however, this one, I am just going to end it sharp. So I'm just going to extend it, and I'm just going to chop it off like this. Because if you look at this image over here, it ends it actually ends sharp. So just going to leave it like that. When I'm doing all these gaps and flanges, that is probably the time when I'm going to update this one. But for now, I think this is good. Okay, so I would say that pretty much completes the front detail over here. I don't think I really need to trim anything. Just gonna leave that for a little bit later. However, I am going to delete the construction history over here like this, and I think we are ready to move on. Okay, so we do still need to put some like design fillets here and there, but before I do that, I think I want to add a little bit more detail on the side. So that is probably the only area that's not been worked on. I think the rest of it is pretty much blocked in. Now it's just a matter of adding details and putting fillets. So let's go ahead and work on this one. Now, before I do, however, actually let's grab some images. Okay. So before I do, I think I want to lay out some curves for some of the details, like the intake over here. So let's do that first. So what I'm going to do is, well, actually, this doesn't really look parallel, so I think it's okay. So let's grab a curve. I'm going to just project a few lines. I'm going to use the stretch tool. And let me just see if I have any curves for any of these. I don't think I do. Okay. All right. So just going to lay this out here, and this one, I'm going to say, keep it here like this. I'm just going to snap a curve from here to here. And I think that's good. And this one, I probably do want to just copy and paste this one to make it nice and parallel. So I'm going to just snap it over here. Actually, it looks like the angle is a little bit different. So, well, I guess it doesn't really matter. It's still complementary. It's not like it's doing something totally out of the blue. So I think that's okay. Okay, so I'm going to just bring this out over here like this. I'm going to turn all the curves off. And I'm going to project over here. Okay, so now this needs to be, let's take a look. Okay, so this one is actually well, actually, I'm just going to keep this for now. Okay, so maybe I'll just start with this one and work my way forward. So let's go ahead and take a look. Let's see. Actually, I don't think there's an image of the intake. So let me try to find an image that shows that a little bit better. Okay, I need a little bit of, I guess, a tip up view. This will work. Okay, so if you see this hood scoop here, in the LP700, it's just dead flat. But in the LP750, it's just a permanently open scoop that is rising up a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use a trim convert for this area. So I'm just going to do that. And now this should be, the deviation should be, I think it should be pretty close. So let me just check. I'm going to just check the surface to surface. So that measures the deviation between the two surfaces. Yes, there's a little positional continuity over here, but it doesn't need to be continuous. So I'm just going to bring it up. And let's go ahead and duplicate this edge over here. And I'm just going to bring it like this. And I'm just going to use align to align it to this one. And for blending, I'm just going to have extra series of 4, blend factor of 1, so that it's just a nice gradual slope like this. Okay, and I am going to check the height. So let's go ahead and actually I'm just going to hide everything except for this. So let's go ahead, grab the side view like that. Okay, so before I do anything, I probably want to project a few lines. So let's go ahead and I'm going to grab this curve like this. And I'm going to create a curve like that. And let's hide these surfaces for now. And I'm just going to grab a curve right here. Okay, so I think that should be good. I'm going to snap a curve here, and I'm going to snap a curve here. And that's going to basically determine where we need to point all the surfaces towards. Okay, so now let's grab, actually all the curves are located in the reference layer. So I just want to isolate that. And I'm going to grab this one, this surface. So let's grab it. I'm going to grab all the curves, and I do need to isolate the canvas images from here and here. Let's say hide unselected. Okay, so I think that looks good. Okay, so now let's just project it from the top, see where all the points are. So I'm just going to project it like this. Okay, so that's going to give me some clue as to if the height is good. And I think, it's actually pretty close, but I think it needs to go up just a little bit more. So I'm just going to move it up like this. And I think that's looking pretty good. Okay, so now let's go ahead and, I'm just going to trim it off like this, but it probably needs a little bit of refinement here and there. So let me just say visible like this, and I'm just going to create a curve lining up this area and this area. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run a rail along this edge. So before I do though, I'm going to delete this one because it's actually no longer needed. All the projection curves will be needed, but this one doesn't. Is no longer necessary. I'm just going to run a rail along this surface over here, and I'm going to say curve segment on like this. Now you'll see that it's a little bit off, so I am going to have to do a little bit of adjustment here. So let's just take a look, because this actually has a little bit of crown over here, but I just made it straight, but I don't think that's how it's supposed to be. So let me just trim it. Or not trim it, intersect it, and you'll see that there's a little bit of crown. Actually, that does look pretty straight. I'm going to see if I can grab a top view, but I don't think I have one for the LP 750. Oh, this is a bit of a dilemma. Let's see if I have one on this one. No, I don't. Okay. Now that looks pretty straight, which means I probably have to lean the surface quite a bit. The only problem is I don't know if I really want to do that. Okay, so that was a little bit too much. Let's go back to 0. Okay, so maybe I'll do maybe like -10. Okay, so that does make it a lot more straighter. The only issue is that is going to twist the surface quite a bit. So I think what I want to do is also add a little bit of crown this way. So that, well, actually I think that's going to negate some of that effort. But it definitely does need that. So let's see if this is good. So I'm going to just trim the surface for now. I'm going to get rid of this curved surface. And I'm going to just trim this one like that. And actually, why did it not trim? There we go. Okay, so I think well, actually, that doesn't look too bad. I still don't like how it's curved, a little bit too curved. The only issue is that I do need a dead top view to see if this is good. But because the base curve has a little bit of curvature, having a little bit of section over here is kind of inevitable. Unfortunately, I think we are going to have a little bit easier time with this one, so let's get that in first. So again, for this one, I think I'm just going, well, because the angle is a little bit too severe, yeah, I think I'm just going to make it a little bit more straight. I'm going to add a bit of a crown from the front view so that it's not that flat. I'm going to add a little bit of crown like this, and I'm just going to run a rail like this, and let's just run it along this edge. Okay, so this one is a little bit better. Let's see. So if you compare the intersection point versus, it's got a little bit of crown, but it's not that bad. And actually, I'm going to delete the rotation. That actually makes it straighter. So I think this edge is good. It's just this one that I think I need to do a little bit of work on. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of the curved surface here. This curve I don't think is necessary anymore. The only issue, well, actually, let's just trim it first. Okay, so the only issue I have with this surface is that there's because I used a curve in the middle, a gen curve in the middle, you'll see that there's a extra span. So what I can do is I can just extend it back. So I'm just going to grab this one, going to just extend it back like this, and that reduced the span to 1. I'm just going to say pick nothing, and I'm just going to extend it back to this point like that, and that should be good. So the only thing I need to do is I just need to trim this off, and we should be good to go. So I'm just going to grab a curve from here to here like that, and I'm just going to project. Now this one, I think I can just project them from view. Don't think it matters that much, and I can just trim that piece away like that. And now, oh, this one. Now, if worst comes to worst, I can always make it just a triangular surface, but I prefer really not to do that. One thing I can do is, well, actually no, I don't think I want to intersect it. I don't think I want to start over here and intersect it at the bottom. So if that's okay, so let me just try to rotate it a little bit more, maybe -13, maybe 15. that does make it straight. The only problem is that does give it a little bit of twist on the surface, which I don't think it looks too bad. But that does, well, at least I think we were able to make this a lot straighter than before. So yeah, I think this is pretty good. So let's just compare it against the picture with the similar perspective. So yeah, I think -15 did it. All right, so this, however, it does need to slope in, so let's do that too. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm pretty happy with where things are as far as this shape goes. So I'm just going to delete the construction history on this one. And the surface does need to slope in. So let's go ahead and build that. Now, as far as the wall goes, I don't know if this is supposed to have a separate wall. So let me see. I would assume that it's just, well, I guess that also depends on the draft angle too. So let me, okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I am going, well, I do think, well, I don't think I need this one anymore, so let's just turn that off. Okay, so I do think that this is actually not lined positional, so I'm going to just scoop that down, and hopefully that'll be good. Okay, so in order to that, I'm just going to do a trim convert on this surface again, but this time I'm actually, because it is supposed to be touching, I'm going to align it perfectly. So let me just trim this edge like this, and I'm going to just grab position, align, and I'm going to say position align, XR0. Okay, so that's good. I'm going to add one more row, 1 more degree, so that it's actually perfectly positional. Everything's lined up correctly. I think that's good. Okay, so now let's go ahead and point this downward a little bit. So if you look at this image over here, you'll see that this is actually sloping down downwards compared to this line over here, which means that the opening is getting bigger. So let's go ahead and I'm going to just duplicate this edge over here, and I'm just going to push it down like this, and I'm going to use align to connect. Let's see. Well, actually, let's turn rear off, and I'm going to just align this surface onto this curve like this. And for this one, what I'm going to do is, while I do think that this is supposed, oh, actually, let's bring this up. Okay, so while I do think that this is a positional continuity, I do see a little bit of more slope compared to the straight line we have here. So what I can do is I can just push this out. Well, first of all, push it down. Actually, let me just check. So let me first of all extend this surface, because we need something on the inside. Now when I finalize all the surfaces over here, I am going to add thickness, but for now I think this is just this is good enough, and I am going to extend this surface with merge off, so that I have some surface, so that I know how it intersects over here. Okay, so I'm just going to grab this one, and I'm going to say degree 2 instead of degree 4. I'm going to align it right here like this. I'm going to say G2, and that's pretty good. Okay, so despite, well, let's take a look. Yeah, I think I'm just going to make it a little bit less break. So what I can do is, instead of having a blend factor 1, I can have a blend factor 2. So if you notice the CV location, you'll see that it's a little bit more gradual, and the amount of blending that happens with the line accelerates as it goes towards here. So if you compare this to 1, you'll see that this is proportional. This gives a little bit less weight of movement towards this side. So I think this is going to be a little bit better. Yeah, I definitely think so. Okay, so I might just point, well, let's take a look. Let's see, I'm going to just point it down a little bit more, like this. I think the amount of break over here is definitely appropriate for what it is. So pretty happy with that. Okay, so I think I'm just going to leave it like that. All right, so that looks good. Okay, so the only issue is that, well, I think I'm going to create a cap somewhere in the middle. So let's go ahead and draft a surface down like this so that this can act as a cap, and we can just intersect everything and just have like a grill surface that blocks it in. Okay, so I'm just going to extend it this way. I'm going to extend it this way, and let's just trim everything. So I'm just going to grab this one, just grab all the surfaces over here. Okay, so this one also needs an extension. So let's do merge off. Just extend it over here. And I'm going to extend this one over here. Now I'm going to have to eventually close all this off, but let's just having separate pieces is okay for now. Okay, so let's do that like that. And let's just intersect it over here. I'm going to say trim. I'm going to just delete the curved surface for now. It's not critical. And we got a scoop or intake actually for the grill. Okay, so I would need to add a little bit of thickness here, but let's leave that for later. I think I'm just going to, well, let's do this. I'm going to connect these two with a freeform blend. It's going to be positioned on both sides. I probably want a little bit of crown. So I'm going to say, let's see. Crown is proportional. And I'm going to have a little bit of crown like this. And I'm just going to extend it this way. And I'm going to extend this way. And let's use these surfaces to trim. So I'm going to untrim this piece over here. I'm going to extend it just a little bit. And let me just intersect this one with this one like that. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to untrim this over here. Now this looks way too rounded over here, so I am going to reduce the amount of crown that we have on this one. So let's go ahead and I'm going to do a proportional modification, NUV on. And let's go ahead. Oh, I'm going to grab this edge like this, and I'm going to just push it down like this so that it's a little bit flat compared to the other side. Now, yeah, I think that looks much better. Okay, so I'm just going to intersect over here, and this should be already done. Let's go ahead and trim this one and trim this one. Now, for the thickness, what I can do is I can just do a tubular offset. Actually, let's see if I can just do a curve offset. So I'm going to just first of all trim it, and I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to try to do a curve offset like this, and I'm going to just offset it. Well, 5 mils might be too thick. I'm going to do maybe 3 like this. And all I have to do is just trim it off. Whoa, that's not good. I don't know why it's all segmented. Okay, so if that's the case, I can just delete the curved surface over here, and I can just do a tubular offset 3 mils. That should give us the result that I want, and that is going to act as the thickness for the interior. Now we do need to add, well, because we actually added thickness, what I need to do is I should actually offset all the surfaces over here, but I'm going to leave that for a little bit later. Yeah, I think I'm going to add that for further along when we're doing even more details to the model over here. Okay, so if that's the case, I don't think I need this anymore. So let's get rid of that. And yeah, I think that looks pretty good. Okay, so let's just bring the rear surface back. So now we got a intake for the engine. So I think we just need to fill this hole over here, and I think we are ready to add some design fillets and details over here after that. Okay, so that is it for part 50. We will continue in the next tutorial, and thank you guys for watching.